You went to Gaza in January of 2024. You penned a very powerful op-ed in the LA Times about your trip. You wrote at the time that what you saw was not war, it was annihilation. Now you've just returned from a second trip in November. What did you see this time around? Has the quote-unquote ceasefire stopped the annihilation?
Mehdi, I did not see a ceasefire. On the first day when I was there, I talked to one of the local plastic surgeons, and I had asked him quite naively, said, has things changed, or are things still very difficult in the ceasefire? And he said to me, he goes, Irfan, things are not difficult, they're impossible. Although the frequency of attacks have decreased, the attacks have continued regularly. I heard bombs, I heard gunfire. I cared for patients with new shrapnel injuries, new gunshot wounds every day. As a matter of fact, in the last couple days that I was there, on November 18th or 19th, the intensity of the attacks actually were increasing. So the fires, the gunfire was continuing. You know, one of the other local doctors had mentioned to me, he said, you know, Irfan, we've been bombed into the Stone Ages. And I think that's also important to keep into perspective where the Palestinian people are. So even if the ceasefire has actually taken place, even if there is a return to, quote, normalcy, these people are still suffering. They have no electricity. They're living in tents. They don't have access to water. I saw them. They're actually going to vehicles collecting drinking water from these vehicles.
And they're now getting hit by storms as well.
Correct.
So this supposed ceasefire was supposed to see a surge of aid, was the phrase that Western politicians use. That was what was going to happen once the fighting stopped. That hasn't happened. The UN reported over 100 rejected aid requests in the first month after the ceasefire for blankets, winter clothes, sanitation supplies, things that I'm sure will harm Israeli soldiers. This kind of nonsense they say. What about medical supplies? Are they getting in? I remember talking to you and other doctors who've been into Gaza since October 2023, and they told me many times that you weren't allowed to take things in your suitcase. Things were getting stopped. Did that happen this time?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's restrictions as even though some doctors are allowed entry, we're only allowed to take personal items. So we're essentially handcuffed, right? We're allowed to go into Gaza, but we don't have the equipment to actually perform the surgeries and to help the patients as we need to. For example, in some hospitals, the orthopedic surgeons were saying they didn't have the tools to basically fix bones. A lot of the places, they didn't have x-ray machines to be able to imagine them. Yeah, so
I remember Dr. Mark Perlmutter telling me about having to leave a drill bit inside a child's arm.
Yes.
Just horrific.